Hello and welcome to Spirit Basics. This is the show for everyone, from the beginner to the avid connoisseur of fine spirits. I'm Steven Olson.
And I'm Jennifer Allan. Last episode, we focused on white rum. Today, let's take it on over to the dark side.
To the dark side. Well, that's because we're talking about dark rum, and when we talk about dark rum, we're talking about a new idea, well, an old idea coming back, which is sipping rum, like we have here. The idea that you can actually sip and savor rum. Last time we talked a lot about how most rum is consumed in cocktails, and I'm not saying that it's not. It absolutely is. But today we'll examine spiced rums, flavored rums, and these fabulous aged rums and sipping rums.
Now you're talking about sipping rums, and last week you mentioned that the sailors drank grog. Now are you telling me they're sipping their grog?
No, that's probably not exactly the case. The confusion here is the word Navy rum. We actually use the word Navy rum loosely to describe aged rums. And the idea of Navy rum that we were talking about last week in this grog thing, it's very real. But the sailors were drinking grog as a daily ration. And consequently, I think they were probably slugging it versus sipping it, but they were definitely savoring every drop because it was so rare. As a matter of fact, it was rationed daily. And they'd even use it for barter on the ships between them as trade and so forth. The idea, though, came from that Navy rum in that when we shipped rum, it was shipped in cask. And in an oak barrel rum, white rum, it starts white, it changes. It starts to develop color, and it develops flavors, nuances, aromatics, congeners, textures that make the rum even more exotic, and that's why we call it a sipping rum, because it can be enjoyed that way.
Well, we know that rum is made in many Caribbean countries, but adding flavors and spices to it, is that an island tradition?
Yes and no. Some of it came from the ships themselves. They oftentimes added spices and flavors to these rums to make them taste a little bit better on the ship, but it actually is more from the moonshining idea, if you will, from the islands, adding spices, flavors, changing the rums for their own personal consumption, using them for holidays and so forth.
Now that was a long time ago, but what's happening with flavored and spiced rums today?
Well, it's a great question, because right now, flavored rum and spiced rum is perhaps the fastest emerging spirit category in the world. It's really taken off. Now, the sipping rum is still a very small section of this, and it's really more for people who are stepping into a new age of connoisseurship, so to speak, like whiskeys and cognacs and so forth. The flavored rums probably began mostly in our world in the 80s with Captain Morgan doing their spiced rum, and of course there are many spiced rums on the market today that are quite good. And then remember Malibu did coconut rum, and now there are many coconut rums, and now the flavors, although originally they were coconut and then lemon and orange, now they've gone crazy. All the tropical flavors, because tropical flavors are great with rum. We've got pineapple and banana and mango and so forth. Today, a little lower alcohol, slightly sweet. They make a great base for cocktails.
So what you're saying is that rum is a great base for many of the classic cocktails, but the flavored and spiced rums are the base for some of the new great classic cocktails of today. Well, who knows more about classic cocktails than our own master mixologist, Dale Degroff. And here's King Cocktail now with a slice of spirit history.
The story of Navy rum, that full-bodied, blended, dark rum that was rationed to the British sailors for so many years, goes back all the way to 1655, to Admiral Penn capturing Jamaica for the British. He found himself with a fleet of British ships in the middle of the Caribbean, sailing back to England with no rations in their hold to drink, because when they came in this direction, they had wine and beer. But going back, they obviously couldn't load wine and beer in 1655 from Jamaica, so they loaded a New World spirit called rum into their barrels. And that began a 300-year tradition of rationing rum to the British sailors. There was another very famous British admiral who made a change in that ration about 100 years later. Let me do a little reading from The Craft of the Cocktail about Old Grogram. Old Grogram was Admiral Vernon. They called him Grogram because he wore a greatcoat of a fabric called Grogram, which was a blend of wool and silk. And he cut quite a figure aboard ship. He says, in 1740, Admiral Vernon, the commander of the British naval forces in the West Indies and a hero of the capturing of Portobello from the Spanish, cut the established rum ration for the British seamen operating in the Caribbean a half a pint by mixing in a half a pint of water. Vernon reasoned that the heat, disease, and dysentery that were unavoidable hazards of operating in the tropical waters of the Caribbean, at least he could keep the men from falling out of the rigging by drinking too much rum. He not only added water, by the way, to rum, he did something else. He added sugar and lime juice to make it a little bit more palatable. Water, sugar, lime juice, and rum. What does that sound like? Sounds like a daiquiri to me. That's exactly what it was if you want to think about it. But he also did something else. He added lime juice to rum 100 years before they discovered that citrus juice cured scurvy. It was really an unusual circumstance. Well, this rationing of rum to the British sailors lasted all the way until 1970. In 1970, they discontinued it when they started loading nuclear weapons aboard British Navy ships and felt it wiser not to have the rum rationing anymore. But Navy rum was a blended rum blended from a lot of different islands. And that brings me to rum cocktails and how important it is that we blend different rums into our rum punches. You would never think of making a rum punch with only white rum. You would want the character of the dark rum as well. And maybe you might float a little bit of overproof rum on top or put a little bit of spiced rum in there, because rum likes to be mixed with itself. Rum is a great story, and it's an ongoing story, as we found out with the flavored rums that are popular today. There's more to come.
Dale has the greatest stories, doesn't he? Next, we'll talk about how dark rum is made.
And our spirit insiders, Morgen Stone and Scott Henuset, give us a look inside the spirit world. That's when we come back.
Welcome back to Spirit Basics. It's time now to take a look at how dark rum is actually made.
Now, last episode we talked about white rum. Now, what's the difference between white and dark rum, and how does it get its color, dark rum?
Well, some dark rums are actually just colored, but the best dark rums, the ones that we're talking about for sipping, for example, get their color from oak barrels. And it could be different kinds of oak. French oak gives certain flavors, American oak gives other flavors, and American oak, we're talking about used bourbon barrels. But generally speaking, we get this vanillin quality, we get spices of cinnamon, clove, nutmeg, we get some nuttiness, and it really increases the texture and the complexity of the product.
So what you're saying is that spiced rum gets its flavor from the oak barrel?
No, not exactly. So, spiced rums oftentimes do spend time in oak and may take some flavors from the barrels. But the spiced rums that we're talking about today, the spices are actually added in the same way that flavors are added for a flavored rum. When we talk about sipping rums and dark rums, the different styles of rum evolve from the different types of distillation. We can use patent stills or pot stills, the different types of oak, French or American, and the different islands from which they come.
Well, now for an even deeper look, we turn now to our spirit guide.
Okay, so how does a dark rum become dark? Well, truthfully, a lot of times it happens because of a visit from the salesman from the caramel factory. But also, the Caribbean is this warm, humid place, right? We're getting closer to the equator. And the way a rum, any spirit, frankly, inside a barrel in these warm, humid conditions will mature is much more dramatic. It's much quicker. It takes on the richness, it takes on the color, it takes on the confectionery flavors, the chocolate, the prune, the date, the fig, all those sorts of flavors are extracted out of time in a barrel, and it happens much more quickly in the Caribbean in those warm conditions than it does, let's say, in Scotland. A friend of mine distilled in both Scotland and the Caribbean, and I remember years ago he told me, he said, Doug, 1 year in the Caribbean is worth 3 years in Scotland. And by that he meant that in 1 year, that barrel of rum would change very quickly, much more quickly than 1 year in Scotland. It would take 3 years in Scotland to equal 1 year in the Caribbean. It was kind of like the Caribbean rum was aging in dog years, compared to what was happening in Scotland. And why this is important is that people will turn their noses up. I've seen people say, well, it's only a 3-year-old rum, how good could it be? Think of it this way, that's equivalent to a 9-year-old Scotch. A 5-year-old rum is more or less the equivalent of a 15-year-old Scotch. So a 5-year-old is a very full, very rich style of rum because of those aging conditions and that time in barrel.
Well, now that we've taken a look at the origins and the history and the process of making dark rum, it's time to take an inside look at this mystical beverage.
Our spirit insiders, Morgen and Scott, take us further into the world of dark rum.
I'm here with the captain, Captain Morgen. Now, Captain Morgen, can you tell me, I think a lot of people, when they think of spiced rum, they think it's going to be really spicy and hot. Is this true?
Oh, no, you mean spicy as in hot pepper spicy?
Exactly.
No, what that means is the rum has been infused with spices to add to the flavor. Give it a easy-to-drink dimension to the rum.
And what kind of spices do you add?
Captain Morgan's original spiced rum is a special blend of Caribbean rum. It's got vanilla, cinnamon, apricots, and other natural flavors. Unfortunately, the recipe is somewhat of a secret, so that's about as much as I can divulge to you.
So where do you make all of your rum, Captain?
Oh, it's made in Canada. It's made in Canada with the finest imported rums from the Caribbean.
You are obviously looking very good for your age,
Oh, well,
but you're quite old. Can you tell me a little bit about your history?
Oh, about my history, okay, I was born in 1635, and I took to the seas like spiced rum, I tell ya. Before long, I gained the loyalty of many buccaneers who traveled with me on my exploits in the West Indies. With my impressive record, of course, of my successful exploits like the sacking of Panama, I gained the respect of many knights and nobles alike. In fact, I was even knighted in 1673 for my service to England, of course, and the government appointed me governor of Jamaica, not once, but twice.
Captain, did pirates actually drink rum?
Is this guy serious? Of course pirates drink rum. It was their favorite drink. In fact, I'd never met a pirate ever who did not make sure they had a bottle of rum with them every time they set sail. Sailors in the British Navy drank rum. In fact, it was part of their daily rations up until 1970. It was used to give them strength.
Made them strong.
Yeah, actually, that's also why a lot of rums nowadays are referred to as Navy rum.
The 16th century buccaneer, known as Captain Morgan, traveled to several exotic locales and had many exciting adventures. Little did he know that his name and likeness would continue on as the icon for a sought-after drink. Ahoy, me mateys!
Thanks for that report. And of course, our insiders will be back next week with another one.
Straight ahead, we continue our look at flavored, dark, and spiced rums, how to make them and how to use them in your favorite cocktails. It's coming up when Spirit Basics returns.
Spirit Basics is brought to you in part by Willow Park Wines and Spirits.
Welcome back to Spirit Basics, the show for everyone who wants to learn more about the world's best libations. Right now we're going to talk about the proper way to drink dark rum. Now earlier you were talking about sipping rums. Do you have to sip them or can you mix them with, say, a cola?
I think you should do anything you want. We don't believe that there are any rules when it comes to drinking these spirits. Certainly it's nice to be savored in a snifter after dinner like a great beverage. However, with cola or in any other cocktail, in our opinion, premium cocktails deserve premium ingredients. So when you start with good stuff, you make a great drink. It's that simple.
Now we know that flavored rums are all the rage right now, but how do they really affect the flavor of the cocktails that you make?
Well, I would say look at it as kind of a new twist on an old idea. You can take the classic rum cocktails, like for example the mojito or a rum toddy. Imagine a rum toddy with spiced rum instead of with just a regular rum. Imagine what a dark rum brings to that package. Some people prefer dark rum in their mojito. Some people prefer dark rum in their daiquiri. There's nothing wrong with this, and what's cool about the flavored rums is they add new flavors, they bring new ideas to these older drinks, but also because of this fact that they're a little bit lower in alcohol and they have these flavors, they make great new classic cocktails, as we were saying before. And I'll tell you right now, as far as I'm concerned, all rum is good with cola or in cola. There's nothing wrong with that at all.
That's good to know. Well, now for even more ideas on how to drink dark rum, we turn to our spirit advisor.
Well, we've talked about white rums, and those are intensely popular because they are smoother and sleeker than these aged rums, these darker rums. Now, some of these medium dark rums are sweetened up. They're made darker by the addition of caramel. That's okay, lots of places in the world do this sort of thing. But it is that sometimes it's to cover up some roughness. Great rum, to me, great old rums, they need no such help at all. They certainly don't need to be super dark in color to be aged. it isn't necessary that they are super dark in color. Often that means they probably have been touched up with caramel a bit. I'm looking for something fuller and richer. Now, if I'm dealing with flavored rums I think are wonderful, but in many ways flavored rums are wannabe flavored vodkas. It's a neat category and it's certainly growing. Spiced rums, people will badmouth spiced rums, but the truth is the spiced rum category is centuries old. It's always been done this way, to throw spices in there inside a rum to hold not just the character of the spice itself inside an alcohol beverage, but to spice up the drink. But when it comes to these rich, old, dark rums, for me, it's almost like cognac. I drink them almost like cognac. Indeed, one of the classes that I teach, my favorite trick to throw on everybody in the classroom is I serve cognac, Armagnac, Calvados, great old cognac, and I always slip in an old rum. And no one has ever spotted them. They have the same caramel, the same honey, the same beautiful old dried fruit smells that I expect out of cognac.
Now who better to teach us about using all of these rums in a drink than our master mixologist, Dale Degroff.
Rum, spiced and flavored and straight and dark and light, is such a great category. Would you ever, for example, think of making a gin drink and mixing 3 kinds of gin together? No. Scotch? I don't think so. But rum? There's almost no rum drink around that doesn't have at least 2 or 3 kinds of rum in it. Rum loves to be mixed with itself. And I'm going to make a very special drink today that mixes lots of rum flavors together, because every one of those island rums, the rum from South America, even Australia, it's the minerals, the soil, the terroir, as we talk about in the wine world, the weather, everything that makes that sugarcane different when you grow it in this island as opposed to that island. So these rums all have their own characters, and they're all made in a different way. Let's start out the Bahama Mama with, oh, look at a pretty glass. You get yourself a nice specialty glass like that. The Bahama Mama with a little color. We'll just do a little grenadine in the bottom of our glass here, and a little spice. Why wouldn't you use the spices of the Caribbean in a Caribbean drink? And these are Angostura aromatic bitters, the spices of the Caribbean. I'm going to start with some plain old white rum. A little bit. Not a lot of heavy flavor there, but let's move over into a dark navy rum, very full-bodied, very spicy, little vanilla notes. Nice. That's going to bring another dimension to our drink. Hey, how about some coconut rum? The Bahama Mama has coconut rum in it. So we have a little spice, we have a little coconut, we have the foundation of the white rum. We could even put a dash of aged añejo rum. How about that? And the juices are, by the way, when you pick up juice, pick up your spoon, because juice settles out. We're going to start with a little pineapple. Orange. Now we've got spices coming from the aromatic bitters, we got spices and vanilla coming from the rum, we got fresh fruit juices, we have a beautiful glass. Let's shake it up. And I'm going to garnish with a medley of fruits. Here we go. That's a beauty. This hurricane glass, and let's shake it up. My Boston shaker, my Hawthorne strainer. Ooh, that's pretty, yeah. Look at that, baby. Let's take a little bit of pineapple, a little bit of orange, and a cherry. Our gosh. The Bahama Mama, look at it. Look at the glass, isn't it pretty? Tiki drinks, these were called, and let's have a taste. Oh, yes. Oh, back to you, Steve. Back to you, Jennifer.
The Bahama Mama, I just like saying it. A classic rum cocktail and a fitting tribute to the rum runners during Prohibition.
After the break, we learn how to cook using rum. That's when Spirit Basics continues. Welcome back to Spirit Basics. We're in the kitchen and we're joined by our Spirit chef, Chef Allan. Thanks again for joining us.
It's great to be back, Jennifer.
Now today we're talking about cooking with dark rum. Now because dark rum has, stronger, robust flavors, how difficult is it when you're using it in the kitchen?
Not at all. In fact, it's great to use in the kitchen because one of the things we want out of cooking with rum is we actually want a rum flavor. Other spirits we've used, we've sometimes burned them off and we've got like a licorice taste or some kind of an herbal taste. But what we're looking for here is actual rum flavor. And so what's good about dark rum is it gives you that in spades. It's a lot deeper, and again, depending on how they make it, if it's aged in wood or whatever, you're going to get a better taste to work with, a better flavor on your plate.
So why would you use dark rum instead of white rum?
Flavor. And in fact, what you really want, or in some cases, I shouldn't say that, in some cases you might want some color. But really, because normally you're cooking rum with things like sugar and cinnamon and brown sugar, color's not going to be as much of a factor as it is of pure taste.
All right, well, we've got some dishes here. Can you tell us what they are?
Well, the first dish here is a grilled spiced chicken with a Caribbean mango rum sauce. And, what we've got here is a classic, almost, Caribbean's the word. So we've got almost a jerk chicken, Jamaican flavors with some basmati rice. Now that on its own would be spectacular. And what makes it even better is we've got some warm mangoes where we've added some dark rum. And just as we talked about cooking with spirits and the things that rum may go with when you're mixing a cocktail, tropical fruit, because of where it comes from, is perfect, and it really enhances the sweetness of the mangoes, and you get an actual rum taste out of it, which is something we want.
So with this dish, the rum is in the mango sauce.
Right. We don't deal with the chicken is actually a bit of, in this case, the chicken is sort of the base for what we're trying to enhance, and we've got, you can see all those gorgeous caramelized spices on there, and that's what we're going to work with when we get the rum taste in there.
Well, looks like we have some bananas over here, which look really good.
You bet. And talk about a classic, rum, dark rum with bananas. And the number one recipe for that would be Bananas Foster, which is a warm caramelized banana dish. Here, what we've got is sauteed bananas with some rum, and we drizzled some chocolate sauce. And you can just smell it coming off of there. We've caramelized them. It's a perfect way to use dark rum, bananas and rum, classic combination.
Well, I can't wait to try both dishes. Now, if you'd like to try these dishes at home, all you have to do is log on to our website for the recipes. Over to you now, Stephen.
Thanks, Jennifer. Those recipes are making me hungry. Well, that's it for this edition of Spirit Basics. Join us on our next episode when we explore the emerging world of grappa. I'm Steven Olson, and for Jennifer Allen and our entire team here at Spirit Basics, we'll see you on the next episode. Salud.
Special thanks to Willow Park Wine and Spirits, whose dedication to providing knowledge, awareness, and service to their customers has made this show possible.